Hello, my name is Tony Odutola, and I'm putting this video together to assist my project students know how to document their project, thesis, and dissertation properly so that it can aid their presentation, their defense, and eventually their easy graduation. So for your project documentation, you need to have all these chapters. You need to have your preliminary pages and then introduction, which is chapter 1, literature review, and the others are shown here. I'll be elaborating on the different segments that must be in your project documentation. So for preliminary pages, you must have your cover page, which is the hardcover, and it's dependent on the color of your faculty. For the Faculty of Engineering, this color here is what is what we use in the University of Port Harcourt. So this is going to be your cover page, and you need to put some information which you can get from the department. Then for title page, after your cover page is your title page, your declaration page, your certification page comes next. The education must be simple. So after certification, you dedicate your work to whoever you want to dedicate it to. And then you have the acknowledgement where you must acknowledge your supervisor first. And then you acknowledge all others that have assisted in helping you put the research together. Then, as part of your preliminary pages, you must have your table of content, which helps the reader to navigate within your work. So it contains the title of the different segments in your work and then the page number. And in your table of content, don't put all dots before it's from the title and then you put dot to get to the page number. Don't do that. Instead, you should leave it plain. So I'll actually be showing you an example of my own project towards the end of this video. You would have list of figures if there are figures in your project. You have list of tables if there are tables in your project. List of plates. Plates are pictures you took during your project. So if there are plates in your project, you would have list of plates, and then list of abbreviations if there are abbreviations you made. And the next stage is still part of your preliminary pages, which is your abstract. So abstract is like a summary of your entire work, contains a little about the introduction, the problem you're trying to solve, and then how you went about solving the problem, which is a methodology, and then your results from solving this problem and your recommendation. So you put all of that together in about 300, well, less than 350 words for PhD students, then less than 300 words for master students, then about 250 or less words for undergraduate students. And your text should be single line spaced when you're writing your abstract, and it must not be italicized. So your words, your text should be straight. Now for chapter one is actually the introduction, and what I expect to see is your background to the study, which gives a general overview of the research area that you are writing about. The statement of the problem, what's the problem you're trying to solve? Because if there's no problem, there's really no need for the research. So what is actually the problem you're trying to solve? You'll be telling us during the statement of problem. Then the aim and objectives. The aim is like a reflection of your project. So your project topic. So the aim is your project topic. And then the objective are the different stages that you will need to achieve, that you will need to do in order to achieve your aim. So you have a global aim, and then you have those little bits, those little tiny projects that you need to do or tasks that you need to do in order to achieve the aim of the study. So your objectives must be numbered. So you have objective 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, depending on the number of objectives you have. The significance of the study. What are the benefits of this study? And how will this study benefit, the industry or wherever the study is focused on? Again, you also need to have the scope of study. Scope of study tells us how much of the research area you are going into. For instance, if you're researching about different mammals, if you now focus on 2 types of mammals, maybe like dog and cats, that would be your scope of study. You can write that, oh, actually there are how many thousand or there's this number of mammals that exist on Earth. But for this particular study, I am focusing on dogs and cats alone. So that's how to put together your scope of study depending on what you are doing. So after chapter 1, the next stage is your chapter 2, which is the literature review. Now, because I'm putting this video together for MSc, PGD, PhD, and undergraduate, you have to pick up what is applicable to your own research, to what you're doing, to your kind of documentation. And if you're unsure, please send me an email and I'll be glad to respond. Now, for you need to put together a conceptual framework if it's applicable to your work. And a conceptual framework it shows the representation of the relationship you expect to see between your variables, you know, or the characteristics of the properties you want to study. So that's what you put together in your conceptual framework. Then for the theoretical framework, it introduces and describes the theory that explains why the research problem under study exists. So the theory around why this research is being done, why there's something you're researching on, is what you put together in your theoretical framework. And the theoretical framework is a structure that can hold or support the theory of a research study. So you have to put that together if it's applicable to your research. And then for your empirical review, this is compulsory for all groups, MSc, PhD, or whoever is researching. You must have an empirical review where you are discussing the works from previous researchers, what they have done to solve these problems. And with this, you have to look for relevant papers and read them, relevant papers on your research area, read them and talk about their findings and what methods they used in solving that particular problem. And then from the empirical review you have done, you'll be able to identify the gaps that the previous researchers did not fill. And this is where you'll be coming in to conduct your research in order to cover this gap. Now, your chapter 2, which is literature review, what I expect is that for undergraduates should review at least 15 literatures, while PhD students should review at least 25 literatures. For master students, you must review at least 30 literatures, and doctorate students, well, you review at least 50 literatures. All literatures that appear in the list of references must be cited in the body of the work, and the literatures that are cited in the body of the work must appear in the list of references. Now, for citation in literature, you must cite using the APA method. And for a single author, what you would do is the surname and the year. So if I wrote a paper and I'm a single author, so what you have is the Odutola and maybe the year 2023. For double author, you're going to have the surname of the two authors and the year. So if I authored with Ude, what you'll be having there is Odutola and Ude 2023. Then for multiple authors, you'd have just the first surname. I mean, for authors more than two, you'll be having the surname of the first author and you put et al. And year. So for instance, if I have a paper that has more than 3 authors, what I'll be writing is Odutola et al. 2023. Also, I think we have gone through this, and then we move to the methodology. So for methodology, here you'll be discussing the method you used in achieving your results and to solve the problem. Now, you must have a research design where you talk about how you design this research and what you're planning to, and how the methods you put together to solve the problem. The method of data collection or instrumentation, you can put that if it is applicable. Then validity and reliability of instruments, if it's applicable, you can have that. If there were instruments that you had to check for their validity, you can add that. But the two compulsory parts of this chapter 3 is your research design and your methods of data analysis. These two must be in your chapter 3. For chapter 4 is results and discussion. And for results, for 4.1 will be result and analysis. Here, you're addressing objectives and hypotheses where necessary, substantiated with tables, figures, plates, theorems, etc. Remember, we talked about how you broke down your aim into different objectives. So in your result and analysis, you're addressing the different objectives that you had set to achieve. So you're showing the results that those objectives were actually attained. Then you now discuss the findings. You discuss the findings based on the figures and plates and tables that you have presented in your results. And I should state here that you must discuss every figure table, plate, theorem that you present in your result. They must all be discussed. Then in the final chapter will be chapter 5, where you put together your summary of findings, and then you put together your conclusion, and then you put together your recommendation. Summary, all what you found out, you can summarize, and then you conclude that this is the conclusion. The conclusions must be drawn from your research, and then recommendation must also be drawn from your research. And I should also state here now that your conclusion should be based on the objectives that you had set to achieve, and your recommendation also should be based on the objectives that you had set to achieve. Then, very important, you must put together your contributions to knowledge. How does this research contribute to knowledge? So that's in a nutshell how you can put together your research work. So for references, immediately after your conclusion will be your references, and the references will be in the American Psychological Association style, which is also known as APA style. And I have put together 2 examples here. Here I am, here's one of my papers, and here's the title, the author's name. So the author's names come first, and then the year, and the title of the article, and then the journal name, volume, and then page number. Same with this. The author's name comes first. Here is dual author, and we have the title of the article, the journal name, page number, issue, journal name, volume, issue, and page number. So there are some things you should note. After your references, you can now have appendices, and appendices should be structured according to chapter. Now, if you had been looking at how those the other part of this presentation went, when we were in chapter 4, our first bullet point was 4.1. So that's what we also expect to see throughout the work. When you're in chapter 3, your subtopics should be 3.1, 3.2, and so on. Now, for appendices, when you get to appendix A, whatever comes, if you're going to be numbering a figure, it should be figure A1, figure A2, and so on. So tables should be on separate pages without grid lines. So for your chapter 4, make sure that your tables are, or wherever your tables appear, your tables should not have grid lines. So also your figure should be on separate page, and your figures should not have grid line as well. Plates should also be on separate pages. Numbering of tables or figures or plates and equations must be chapter specific. So if you're in chapter 1, your tables must be from table 1.1, which is the first table in chapter 1, table 1.2, second table in chapter 1, table 3.4 will be the fourth table in chapter 3, figure 5.1, which you can well, it's very unlikely you have figures in conclusion and recommendation. So let's go back to table 4, figure 4.2 will be the second figure in chapter 2. Okay, so here's an example of a figure that has no grid line. You do not find any grid line here. So this is the standard, and you can see the figure title, figure 4.1, which makes it the first figure in chapter 4. And for this place, you're going to be, this is figure 4.2, which is the second figure in chapter 2. However, sorry, second figure in chapter 4. However, the way the figure appears is not acceptable because it's having grid lines. So you need to take off all these grid lines to make the figure acceptable. So for pagination, we use Roman numerals in the preliminary pages. So from the cover page right up till we go to the abstract, all we do is in Roman numerals. But from the chapter 1, you start numbering in our Arabic numerals, and the page number must be at the bottom and centered. Then the recommended font is Times New Roman, and the font size is 12, and you must use double line spacing except in your abstract. So like I said, I was going to show you an example using my thesis. Now this my PhD thesis. This is actually the title page, and it's closely followed by your my declaration page, my certification page, dedication, acknowledgements, table of contents. See, there's no dot here. It's all plain. And list of figures, list of tables, list of plates rather, and then list of tables, and my abstract. You see how it is? There is no double line spacing here. It's just single line spacing for the abstract. Then for the chapters, I have here the chapter 1 introduction, should be background to the study. The thing is the rules change. So for now, what I presented in the slide is what is actually acceptable by the school. So, but then I think general was acceptable. So make sure your 1.1 is background to the study. Just use the outline I presented in the presentation. I'm just trying to show you how I did mine then. And notice that my work is well aligned, well aligned. I think this is central justification or so. I'm not sure, but you can use that, you can use your word to achieve this kind of well aligned work, so that you're not having your work left indented and having the text in different ways, and it's not pleasing to the eye. So this is my chapter 2, and let's see the first figure in chapter 2 is plate. The first plate is plate 2.1, and first figure, this is another plate, it's plate 2.2. You see how it is? So this shows that the second plate in chapter 2. Second figure is figure 2.2, and it's just one figure per plate per page, and one plate per page, like I already told you. So this is what chapter 2 looks like, and you can see the citations being done. It all is usually written, is usually italicized. Then see how the table is. The table number is usually on top of the table, while the page number is under the, while the figure number is under the figure, but table number is on top of the table. Okay, so these are more figures, and yeah, this is another citation. You can see it's all 2006, meaning there are more than 2 authors. So let's move to chapter 3. So see, this is still chapter 2. So this is chapter 3 here. And I'm talking about the research I'm doing, design of the loop. And here I have a picture of the initial design, and you can see how the figure number is below. And there's a description of the equipment that I put together in tabular form. And I have plates here showing the pictorial view of the equipment. So, and the plates are numbered based on the chapter that I'm in. So this is the second plate in chapter 3. Okay, this is the 8th plate in chapter 3. And then we go to result verification. Result and discussion. So in result and discussion, I'm presenting my results. These are the charts I'm looking at. And you can see this is the first figure in chapter 4, so figure 4.1. And then there are several other figures scattered everywhere. Figure 4.3, there's no grid line in the figure. So make sure that your figure appears clean, no grid line. And subsequently, we head to, so these are tables in chapter 4, and see how they appear. And eventually, I'm in conclusion and recommendation. That's how it was then, but now it's summary, conclusion, and recommendation. So make yours that way. And after my summary, my conclusion and recommendation, the next stage is the references, where you can see I use the upper style to put together the references, and your references must be in alphabetical order as shown here. So list them in alphabetical order. And the next will be So after my references, I think the next stage is my appendices. So I have Appendix A, where I'm putting some pictures that I did not include in my report. And this is Appendix A. And I think I have more appendices. This is Appendix B. And see how I number the figure B1, figure B2, because it's in Appendix B. I think in Appendix A, I forgot to number it correctly. So Appendix C also has appropriate numbers. So I'm looking at the commercial KHI and see figure C1, figure C2, and so on and so forth. So Appendix E is apparatus design, and all these appear here. I should have numbered all of these too. So a little error on my part, although make my kind of mistakes. So that's about it. And I hope this was helpful. And if you have questions for me, please, you can reach me in school. You know when to reach me, or you can send me an email and I'm going to try to respond to your concerns. Happy documenting of your project, and I hope you graduate well, and I wish you good success in your project defense. Thank you.